I don't think it's a fundamental failure or an inevitable failure of modern urban life. I just think it's a bad design paradigm, and we designed ourselves into this situation, and hopefully we can design ourselves out of it, even in the most challenging of environments, the modern urban one. And that we can do it, whether it's our neighborhoods, our parks and open spaces, schools, recreational settings, whatever, streets, shopping centers, office buildings, workplaces. And there has been a progress. You know, there's increasing concern for energy efficiency, for example, and I applaud what you're doing in the state. But if that's all we do, we'll never get there. That's half the battle. That is minimizing our adverse effects on natural systems and by, say, mitigating consumption of fossil fuels or cutting down on carbon emissions. That's important, or pollutants. But if that's all we do, we'll never get there. Biophilia, this experiential connection that I've been talking about, has been the missing link in most of sustainable design, and I call that biophilic design. And those are buildings and landscapes that enhance our well-being by fostering not just avoidance of bad things, but a positive connection between people and nature in places that are culturally and ecologically relevant. So if you put the two together, low impact and biophilic design, I call it restorative environmental design, where we, you know, I won't repeat it, we try to combine these two things. And if it's just energy efficient, but it's not a place people want to be, they're never going to sustain it. And because it's going to be basically an alienating environment. Does it matter? Okay, let's go back to children. The case of contemporary schools. The average school, that's a school in New Haven, deprived, the windows are high so kids won't be distracted. Deprived of natural light and ventilation, wasteful of energy, a lot of toxic materials, routinely wasteful, but also experientially impoverished, separated from nature, placeless, it doesn't matter where you are, and it's all about abstract, non-experiential indoor learning. And if you don't think that matters, try to change the system. The data on green schools, which, you know, is limited, suggests, again, the bottom line is higher test scores, greater motivation, less absenteeism and illness, but not just for the students, also for the people who teach the students, you know, the teachers, and who appear to have greater health and satisfaction and productivity and morale and pride and a higher retention rate. Children's recreational environments, you know, I hope I'm not beating up on the American Playground Corporation, but, you know, that's our typical playground, and, you know, that's the denaturalization of play is, you know, if you try to change a playground from hardscape to greenscape, you probably won't be allowed legally. There are a lot of alternatives, and they've been demonstrated and they work. Now, what's the problem with that? You know, the lawyers will never let you build a tree house, but they should, you know, because you might fall. Well, of course you're going to fall. That's part of it. Or residential developments, which are often denaturalized and indoor-oriented and placeless. And they can be different. And again, it's not, you know, I showed the last one because those were, you know, high-end homes. And it's not just about whether you can afford it. Here's a modest development, 220 single-family homes, average size 2,200 square feet. And yet, it was designed to facilitate social interaction, walking, biking, streets were put on the periphery, lots of pedestrian connections, natural drainage. They had to fight for 5 years to get permission for natural drainage. And smaller average lots, but 25% of the land area in dedicated open space, and recreational facilities, and community agriculture. And they find they're more energy efficient. This was built quite a long time ago, and it would be even more, but even more so, the residents know on average 50% more neighbors, and they sell for more after, you know, after 10, 15 years of compared to comparable developments. A child's perspective in this development, this child remarked, growing up in village homes gave me a sense of freedom and safety that would be difficult to find in the usual urban neighborhood. The orchards, the parks, the gardens, the green belts. And this was a tiny little place, you know, but for a kid, it wasn't tiny. You know, they could walk, you know, out their back doors into these green belts. They could steal apples off the tree. They could, you know, Allowed his friends and himself to go anywhere without a danger of crossing the street. And now that he's no longer able to live in such a place, he feels locked in and lost of the freedom he had as a child. And then outdoor experience, and I don't mean to suggest this all has to occur in an urban-built environment. We still need these experiences in these, wild places. And a couple of anecdotes from the study that we did. And this is just, a 2-week experience. But the person said, my outdoor experience occurred at a pivotal point in my life. It gave me the opportunity to take a risk. It strengthened my sense of self. It gave me a feeling of purposefulness, self-respect, and strength that I had never had before. It was the most amazing, awe-inspiring, thought-provoking, challenging experience of my life. It helped me to believe that if there's anything I really want to do in life, I have the ability to do it. It helped me to realize who I was and how I fit into the world around me. This realization affects every decision in my life. It's not just talking about the outdoors. The other person said, being in nature gave me an unbelievable confidence in myself. I found beauty, strength, and inner peace that I never knew was present. It made me more confident, focused, and self-reliant. I've become more compassionate not only toward nature, but other people. I learned about respect, setting goals, working to my maximum, and past it. These are skills I consider to be important in everything I do. And I feel they will help me to continue to be successful throughout life. These are just anecdotes, but there were a lot of them. I have hundreds of them, but they, complement the more statistical data that I presented to you before. And I'll just end with Rachel Carson's quote, again emphasizing children, but it's about all of us. Again, she asked in her book, The Sense of Wonder, at the end of her life, is the exploration of the natural world just a pleasant way to pass the golden hours of childhood, or is there something deeper and more significant and lasting? And she suggests that those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. There's symbolic as well as actual beauty in the migration of the birds and the ebb and flow of the tides and the forest bud ready for spring. There's something infinitely healing in the repeated refrains of nature. Very poetic, very metaphorical, a lot like the anecdotes we heard from the governor. But it's all about that physical, emotional, intellectual, moral, and spiritual enhancement that comes from our ongoing, everyday, experiential relation to nature in a place that is meaningful to us, without which and to its denial and its impoverishment, we go into the future in peril. And to the extent that the future is our children, and this is so important in their development, it becomes extraordinarily important that we pay particular attention to that demographic group.